You are never supposed to be part of this. Before this story goes any further, if you enjoy HFY tales where humanity refuses to bend, where compassion becomes an act of rebellion, and where hope survives even when empires say it's illegal, subscribe, like, stay until the end, because what humanity does next will be remembered across the stars, long after laws, fleets, and empires are forgotten. The cancellation arrives without warning. No war declaration. No orbital bombardment. No dramatic ultimatum echoing through space. Just a message. Clean, polite, multilingual. It appears simultaneously on every registered human world, station, and colony under Concord authority. The crimson sigil of the Concord of aligned species pulses softly at the top of the transmission. Cultural practice termination. Directive. Effective immediately, the ritual designated Christmas is prohibited across all Concord-governed systems. Classification: high-risk cultural phenomenon justification. Economically destabilizing. Psychologically disruptive. Ideologically infectious non-compliance will result in sanctions. You read it twice. Then a third time. Around you, the command deck of the logistics vessel Ardent Mercy goes quiet. Not the calm silence of routine operations, but the heavy stillness that settles just before something breaks. Someone exhales sharply. Someone mutters a curse under their breath. Most of the crew simply stare at the projection as if it might correct itself. Christmas. Out of everything humanity brought into the galaxy, weapons, engines, artificial suns, this is what terrifies them enough to outlaw it. Not your fleets, not your technology, not even your refusal to surrender. A holiday. The explanation follows quickly, flooding public channels. The Concord's analysts describe Christmas as a mimetic anomaly. They claim gift-giving disrupts regulated economies, that voluntary generosity weakens centralized authority, that stories about peace and goodwill destabilize fear-based governance models, and most alarming of all, they say humans never keep it to themselves. Across 40 worlds, the effects are immediate. Decorations are confiscated. Lights are ordered shut down. Music is classified as unlicensed cultural broadcasting. On a mining colony orbiting a red dwarf, a human worker is fined for hanging colored wire lights in her quarters. On a trade station near the Perseus Drift, an orphanage staffed by 3 species loses its power allocation days before the solstice. On a frontier hospital, paper snowflakes vanish from the walls overnight. Alien children ask questions. Why do the humans look sad? Why did the lights disappear? Why were they smiling yesterday? No one answers. You stand at the forward viewport, hands resting against the cold metal rail, staring out at the star map. 40 worlds. 40 places where something intangible, something fragile has just been taken. Behind you, a familiar voice breaks the silence. Captain Alana Reyes, calm, weathered, the kind of leader who has seen supply lines collapse and still found a way through. So, she says quietly, thoughts? You don't respond immediately. Your mind drifts to Earth, to stories passed down from a planet that froze, burned, flooded, and fractured, yet still paused once a year to say, we're still here. Let's share what we have. They don't understand it. You finally say. Reyes nods. No, they don't. A pause. Then she asks the real question. What happens if we ignore the order? The ship's AI projects the consequences in crisp, neutral text. Asked seizure crew, blacklisting, revocation of jump privileges, cultural agitator designation, in short, exile. The first act of defiance doesn't come from a fleet. It comes from a freighter. An old civilian hauler called Bright Candle drops out of jump space above Kesh Minor, one of the banned worlds. Its hull is scarred, its engines outdated, its transponder barely compliant. The cargo manifest lists medical supplies, which is technically true. Alongside antibiotics and nutrient packs, the ship carries something else: hand-knit scarves, battery-powered lights, wooden toys carved during long hyperspace voyages, small packages labeled simply, "Open together." Port scanners flag the cargo. Inspection is ordered, and then hesitation. The dock workers are a mix of species. They've worked with humans for years. They recognize the symbols. They've felt the change humans bring when they celebrate. The inspection officer delays clearance by 9 minutes. That's all it takes. The cargo moves, quietly, efficiently, human hands passing parcels to alien hands. That night on Kesh Minor, temperatures drop below freezing, and lights appear in windows that were supposed to remain dark. The Concorde responds within hours. Sanctions are announced. The freighter's registry is revoked. A system-wide warning is broadcast. Unauthorized cultural dissemination will be met with escalating enforcement. They expect fear. They expect humans to retreat. They misunderstand something fundamental. Humans don't see Christmas as obedience. They see it as delivery. Messages begin to spread. Civilian pilots, retired cargo captains, mixed species crews. I've got spare cargo space. I know an unmonitored route. My grandmother taught me how to make this without an oven. Aliens join in. A crystalline trade guild offers to mask energy signatures. A reptilian mining union opens its transport tunnels. An AI collective quietly edits navigation data, labeling the new routes the Carol lens. You watch it happen from the bridge. No central command, no hierarchy. Just cooperation, just choice. Captain Reyes looks at you again. You finished thinking? You nod. Yes, so am I. She turns to the crew. Effective immediately, Ardent Mercy is suspending standard contracts. A breath. We're delivering Christmas. No applause. Just resolve. Hands move to consoles. Routes plot themselves. Your first drop is Velis Prime. Concorde patrols are heavy. Enforcement cruisers drift through orbit like predators. You cut power, drift silently, deploy cargo pods by hand. They fall like artificial stars. Inside one pod is something simple. A small tree, genetically adapted, grown from an old Earth seed archive. You imagine where it will land. A plaza, a school, somewhere public, a message without words. As you jump away, sensors catch something unexpected. Crowds, humans and aliens together, not protesting, not panicking, standing, waiting, and then, faint, forbidden, unamplified, singing. Far away, inside a Concorde strategic chamber, an analyst watches the data spike. Unauthorized gatherings, rising emotional cohesion, falling compliance metrics. She whispers what no one wants to admit. They're not spreading a holiday. She swallows. They're spreading hope, and hope, once delivered, cannot be recalled. The Concorde does not panic. That is important to understand. Empires do not survive by panicking. They survive by reframing. So when unauthorized lights appear on Velis Prime, when data spikes show synchronized emotional uplift across mixed species populations, when the phrase Merry Christmas begins appearing in a dozen alien dialects, the Concorde does not say Christmas. They say Insurrection Vector C-17. You learn this when the first enforcement fleet jumps in system. 6 vessels, matte black hulls. No insignia, because they don't need them anymore. Everyone knows who they belong to. On your bridge, warning alarms bloom like red flowers. Captain Reyes doesn't raise her voice. Status: Concord Enforcement Group. The AI replies. Authority override detected. They are broadcasting compliance orders to all orbital traffic. The screen fills with text. All civilian vessels are ordered to stand down. Unauthorized cultural distribution will be confiscated. Resistance will be met with force. You feel it then. Not fear exactly. Wait. The moment when you realize this isn't about fines or blacklists anymore. This is about making an example. The first example is ugly. On Rel Station, a human-alien residential ring, Concord troops conduct cultural sanitation. Decorations are ripped down. Packages are seized. A human man steps between an officer and a crate marked open together. He doesn't shout, doesn't threaten. He just says, "That's for the kids." The officer fires, non-lethal, technically compliant. The man collapses anyway. The footage spreads faster than the Concorde can suppress it. And something shifts. Across 40 worlds, people stop asking if they should comply. They start asking how long they can hold out. On the Ardent Mercy, you're rerouting again. Illegal routes, dead zones. Old military corridors the Concorde assumes no one remembers. Captain Reyes watches the star map like a chessboard. They're trying to scare us back into line, she says. They think pressure will make us fracture. You think of the messages still coming in. A Virexian dockworker offering fuel under the table. A fungal collective growing edible decorations that glow softly in the dark. An AI whispering roots it should not know. They don't understand humans, you say. Reyes corrects you gently. They don't understand community. The Concorde escalates. They ban not just Christmas, but symbols associated with it. Trees, lights, gift exchanges. Gatherings larger than 5 individuals during the solstice window. They issue a term for those who resist. Yuletide agitators. It is meant to sound ridiculous. It does not. Your next drop is worse than the first. Carthax Relay, a mixed-species transit hub. Strategic, watched. Concorde cruisers patrol in overlapping arcs. You can't go dark this time. So Reyes does something bold. She broadcasts. Open channel. All frequencies. This is civilian logistics vessel Ardent Mercy, she says, voice calm, steady. We are carrying non-weaponized humanitarian cargo. We do not intend to engage. A pause. Then an enforcement commander responds. Power down and prepare for inspection. Reyes smiles. A small thing, but unmistakable. We can't do that. Silence. Then, state your reason. Reyes doesn't hesitate. Because some things are worth more than permission. You launch the pods, right in front of them. Bright metal streaks against black space. The Concorde fires warning shots. Precise, restrained. Too late. The pods scatter, trajectory chaotic, protected by nothing but speed and probability. On Carthax Relay, they burst open in public concourses. Food, clothes, lights, music chips preloaded with songs no algorithm ever approved. And something else. Letters. Handwritten. Clumsy. Messy. Human. You matter. You're not alone. We're glad you're here. The Concorde arrests the Ardent Mercy. Tractor fields lock on. Power drains. Systems freeze. You expect shouting. Threats. Instead, the enforcement commander appears on screen. Alien. Tall. Precise movements. You are aware, it says, that your actions constitute ideological warfare. Captain Reyes leans forward. No, she replies. They constitute kindness. The alien tilts its head. Kindness is inefficient. Reyes nods. So is oppression. It just lasts longer. You are detained. Not imprisoned. That would be inflammatory. Held for questioning. The Concord believes time and pressure will do the work. They underestimate how much damage Christmas has already done. Because while you sit in a holding chamber, the galaxy watches. They see humans refuse to recant. They see aliens stand beside them. They see enforcement fleets hesitate, just a fraction too long, when ordered to fire on crowds holding lights instead of weapons. On Thyra's belt, an entire alien choir sings a human carol phonetically, not understanding the words, but feeling them anyway. On Edenfall, a Concord-aligned governor resigns rather than enforce the ban. On Earth, old recordings resurface. Footage of wars paused, enemies exchanging gifts in frozen trenches centuries ago. The message is clear. This has happened before. And it did not end the way empires hoped. Inside the Concord strategic core, projections fail. Compliance does not rise. Sanctions do not isolate. Instead, trade slows. Not because of strikes, but because people choose to wait, to help, to share. Hope is inefficient, but it is contagious. Your interrogation is brief, pointless. They ask why you did it. You answer honestly. Because someone canceled Christmas. They do not understand the answer. That frightens them more than defiance. When they release you, quietly, without announcement, the ardent mercy is waiting. Systems restored. Crew intact. Captain Reyes steps onto the bridge and looks around. Well, she says, that didn't work out the way they planned. You check incoming traffic. Thousands of new messages. Not requests, offers. Ships volunteering. Worlds asking when their turn is. Alien communities already preparing. Not just for Christmas, for what comes after. As you jump back into open space, one truth settles in your chest. The Concord thought Christmas was dangerous because it spread joy. They were wrong. It was dangerous because it reminded people of a forgotten idea, that authority is temporary, that fear is fragile, and that hope, once shared, does not belong to anyone anymore. Far behind you, enforcement fleets pull back, not retreating, recalculating, because now they understand. This was never about a holiday. It was about humanity teaching the galaxy something terrifyingly simple. You cannot cancel what people choose to give. The Concord does not admit mistakes. It audits them, reclassifies them. Buried deep inside bureaucratic language, failure becomes anomaly persistence or unexpected sociocultural feedback. So when Christmas refuses to die, when lights reappear faster than enforcement can remove them, when alien voices join human songs, the Concord doesn't say we were wrong. It declares containment phase absolute. The order is simple. Total isolation of affected systems. Communication blackouts. Interdiction of all civilian traffic. No more warnings. No more restraint. The goal is not punishment. It is silence. You feel it first as absence. No messages coming through. No chatter on civilian bands. No laughter leaking across open frequencies. The galaxy goes quiet. The kind of quiet that only happens when someone powerful is holding their breath. On the bridge of the Ardent Mercy, Captain Reyes watches the dead channels with a familiar expression. They're trying to suffocate it, she says. You nod. Hope doesn't need oxygen, you reply. She smiles, tired but unbroken. Let's remind them. Earth breaks the blackout first, not with a broadcast, with an archive. Old signals ancient by interstellar standards begin flooding the void. Grainy footage. Crackling audio. Scenes from a single blue planet long before humans reached the stars. Trenches filled with mud and fear. And soldiers from enemy sides sharing food on a frozen night. Hospitals overwhelmed by plague. And strangers singing to each other through quarantine walls. Cities burning. And lights strung anyway, stubborn against the dark. No commentary. No narration. Just history. Just proof. The Concorde scrambles to block it. They fail. Because alien networks begin relaying it faster than enforcement can suppress. Not out of loyalty to humans. Out of recognition. They have their own versions. Different names. Different rituals. The same meaning. On Velis Prime, Concorde troops arrive to shut down a gathering. They find thousands assembled in the open. Humans and aliens, shoulder to shoulder. No weapons. No banners, just lights. A Concorde commander raises a hand to issue dispersal orders. And stops. Because the crowd begins to sing. Not in human standard. In volition. A melody learned phonetically. Imperfect and trembling, but sincere. The commander lowers their hand and steps back. History records it as the first refusal. Containment phase absolute begins to collapse. Not violently, administratively. Orders delayed by seconds. Enforcements rerouted for efficiency. Compliance reports adjusted, rounded, softened. The Concorde has ruled for centuries by assuming obedience is natural. They have never had to enforce joy before. You receive a message you are never meant to see. A Concorde internal memo, leaked by an AI that has decided neutrality is no longer logical. Assessment. Human cultural phenomena demonstrate high resistance to suppression due to decentralized transmission, emotional reinforcement, and voluntary participation. Recommendation. Cease enforcement. Normalize integration. It is marked rejected, so the Concorde makes one final move. A demonstration. They select a world. Hearth 7, named by humans long ago, before anyone thought the name would matter. A civilian planet. Mixed population. No strategic value. They announce a deadline. All unauthorized gatherings must disperse. All prohibited symbols must be surrendered. Failure will result in orbital intervention. The galaxy watches. This time, there is no confusion. This is not about Christmas anymore. It's about whether an empire can erase a choice once it has spread. On Hearth 7, people gather anyway. In the open. In the cold, not because they think they are safe, but because they refuse to be alone. You are there. The ardent mercy hangs in orbit, powerless to intervene. Reyes stands beside you, eyes fixed on the planet below. They're calling our bluff, she says. You shake your head slowly. No, you say. They're showing everyone who they are. On the surface, lights appear. Not bright, not defiant. Just enough to be seen. Families, friends, strangers who became something else over the past few weeks. A human child hands a small glowing ornament to a Concorde-aligned alien neighbor. The alien hesitates, then accepts. The cameras catch it. The galaxy holds its breath. The Concorde fleet moves into firing position. Targeting a raise lock. A countdown begins. 10, 9, 8. Something unexpected happens. The fleet does not fire. Because one ship, just one, drops out of formation. Then another. Then a third. Captains request clarification. Officers cite conflicting orders. Subroutines fail to resolve moral ambiguity. The Concorde was built on certainty. This moment contains none. On Hearth 7, the crowd begins to sing, not loudly, not perfectly, but together. Multiple species, multiple languages, one rhythm. It is not a human song anymore. It belongs to everyone who needs it. The countdown reaches 0. Nothing happens. Across Concord space, something unprecedented occurs. Worlds declare known compliance. Not rebellion, known compliance. Trade hubs refuse inspections. Transport unions halt enforcement cooperation. Entire alien assemblies issue a single statement. We choose this. The Concord fractures. Not explosively. Quietly, like ice melting beneath sunlight. Authority drains away when no one believes in it enough to enforce it. Days later, the official repeal arrives. No apology, no ceremony, just a revised classification. Christmas cultural practice, tolerated risk level. Low, it is laughably insufficient. No one treats it as victory, because what replaced it is bigger. The following year, Christmas is celebrated on worlds that have never seen snow, by species who do not understand pine trees, by beings who experience time differently, by civilizations that once ruled through fear. They adapt it, change it, make it theirs, because that was always the point. You stand once more on the bridge of the ardent mercy, watching lights flicker across the stars. Reyes joins you. They'll study this for centuries, she says. Try to explain it. You smile. They'll fail. Why? You think of everything that happened. Of bands and fleets and silence. Of songs whispered instead of shouted. Because they'll keep asking how humans did it, you say. And they'll miss the answer. Rees nods. What's the answer? You watch a distant world light up for the solstice. Humans didn't deliver Christmas, you say softly. We delivered permission. Permission to hope. Permission to give. Permission to choose kindness without approval. That was the real contagion. That was the real threat. Somewhere, a Concord analyst closes a final report and writes a single line in the margins, not for the archives, but for themselves. Never try to ban something people give freely, because empires can cancel laws. They can cancel broadcasts. They can cancel holidays. But they can never cancel what humanity does best, showing up together.